everybody. I think we're going to get started again. Oh, that doesn't work. And be careful about this.
I will try. I'm a klutz. We'll see what
Paul
happens.
very nervous. So before we start the next talk, I just want to remind everybody about a couple things. First of all, if you want to sign up for the soccer, come and let me know. That's tomorrow night at 8 o'clock at Stamford Bridge. If this will entice you to be there, prior to the game, there is a tiki bar right outside of the stadium. And Greg Marr of Look North, I'll say this since he's gone, did I say that? Yes, New Jersey. Yes, New Jersey. I'm too tired to remember what I'm saying. Greg Marr from New Jersey is sponsoring drinks prior to the game. So I'll provide more specific information probably tomorrow, but so that'll be happening. This will wrap up, then we'll head over. So it'll probably be a great, yes, see, but he is paying for it, yes. This is how our conference meetings work. Greg steps out and he's paying for everything after that. So, and so something else I need to remind people. Oh, Mayhem! Don't forget about Mayhem. Think about like what fun thing you might want to show everybody tomorrow afternoon. And tonight it's at Fox on the Green. I posted the information in the Slack channel. It's just right across one of these streets. It's not that far. And it'll be starting at 6:30. Food's probably going to be out there about 6:45 to 7. So they tell me. So, but there'll be drink available prior to that. So. All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Ollie.
Thank you. Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to London. So I'm going to introduce our final speaker for the day. This is Andy. I've known Andy for 20 years, scarily. We first worked on a project together when I first started out, when I was first solo. We built a custom CMS of our own. Well, Andy did. He built it for me. Yeah, he's a top man at PHP, knows exactly what he's talking about. We did actually go on and build a second CMS of our own, which was a full e-commerce system. I think probably the biggest project we've ever done. So yeah, PHP-wise, Andy knows his stuff, and he's going to be talking about CMSs and a bit of Laravel, if I'm correct.
A little bit, maybe.
So over to Andy Savage from SavageScape.com.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ollie. House, should we dim the lights?
Yes.
Thanks, Ollie. So as Ollie said, I'm Andy Savage. I'm the founder of SavageScape, a small but perfectly formed development studio in the northwest of England, and we do stuff with PHP. But before I go any further, I really do need to make a confession. I don't know the first thing about Expression Engine. I've been using it now for 2 or 3 weeks. And maybe that's the point, because what I do know about is connecting back-end services and making websites do things. For the past 25 years or so, I've been developing lots of PHP applications and websites, largely for the enterprise, which is a little unusual because way back then, PHP wasn't really considered suitable for corporates or the enterprise. It was not very mature. And so I'm hoping we can go back to the 90s and talk about the start of PHP and see how it's matured over the years. So 97, I think it was, PHP 3 was released. The Wild West, it was a different world back then. So effectively, when you entered a URL into your web browser, if it ended in, well, every URL mapped to a file on disk. And if it was a PHP script, it might look a little bit like this. So you would have a PHP block at the top, and then you'd dive into HTML, and effectively you could jump in and out of PHP mode, HTML mode, switch between the two as many times as you wanted, and it just kind of worked sometimes. So yeah, it was messy, and you had a lot of repetition because things got repeated, and it was all just a bit of a mess. So we needed a better way of doing things, and we got one in the MVC pattern. which stands for Model View Controller. So this was a design pattern that goes all the way back to the 60s, I think. Smalltalk kind of re-implemented it, and it was again picked up by web devs at the start of the 2000s. But what it gave us was a way of splitting out our data structures from our business logic, our application logic, and our presentation layer or templates, and separating those things, which is a very good idea. Gives you great structure. And it's the way we started to do things 20 years ago, and it's the way we still do things today. So PHP wasn't the first web environment to come up with it. Ruby on Rails made it popular again. Ruby is an interesting little programming language, but it was the on Rails part of it which kind of was of interest really. In the on Rails, Rails was a kind of built-in framework that gave you that structure that frameworks give you. So you'd create a new project for Ruby. It would create the directories on disk for you, so you knew where to put things. You weren't starting from scratch every time. And then in 2006, CodeIgniter brought a lot of these ideas to PHP. And although CodeIgniter wasn't the first kind of PHP framework, it was very popular very quickly, really caught on. It was lightweight, it was fast. And another thing that it brought for us was the idea of proper routing. So no more were the URLs you entered tied to files on disk. You could reuse code in a much more sensible way and do more interesting things with URLs. So there's some common ground, obviously, between Expression Engine and CodeIgniter. They've got the same origins. And I actually got this wrong. I thought that Expression Engine was built on top of CodeIgniter, but it turns out that's not true at all. CodeIgniter has its roots in Expression Engine and was spun off into its own project and took on a life of its own. And while this was all going on, there were many PHP frameworks coming and going. Symfony is like the OG of them all. Zend was like the official one. Some were paid for, some weren't. CodeIgniter was massively popular. But all these systems weren't interoperable. They didn't really talk to each other, and you had to opt for one and stick with it. And then in 2009, PHP Fig was formed, which was the framework interoperability group. A load of PHP framework guys came together and decided that what we needed was some standards, and they came up with the PSR standards. And these were numbered, PSR 0, I think we're up to PSR 20 something now. And they are standards that affect all sorts of things. So language standards, where you put your semicolons, where you put your white spaces in your code, but also much more technical things like how auto-loading works, which is really useful if you want frameworks to be able to borrow pieces of other frameworks. And all of a sudden, PHP had matured. And a friend of mine describes this as the best thing that ever happened to PHP, and he's probably right. So the components became interoperable, and that was the foundation really for Laravel coming along in 2011. So Laravel was largely based on Symfony, but took bits from other places as well. And for the first time, we had something that was really powerful, a really comprehensive suite of tools for developers, really strong tooling, but also, as well as being beautiful to code in and powerful, it has a really strong ecosystem around the whole of Laravel. So in some ways, it's a sort of spiritual successor to CodeIgniter, but it doesn't include any CodeIgniter code. It's just a really powerful, flexible system with great documentation, a really strong community, excellent package management and package support available. And if anyone's interested in learning Laravel, then Laracast is a really good website, which is just full of videos to get you started. So a quick comparison of EE and Laravel, because they both spiritually kind of, they share that MVC ethos. So you have your data layer, which in expression engine is represented by channels and fields. But in Laravel, you've got a really powerful active record implementation called Eloquent, which is an object mapper. They both have templates, which you're familiar with, and obviously both allow you to include logic as well. Whoops. So yeah, Laravel, really powerful way of interacting with your data, your models. One of the differences between EE and Laravel, in Laravel you've got this kind of active model approach to accessing your data. In EE, what's happening in the database is abstracted away from you. You don't need to know because EE just does the magic for you. And a good example of the difference there is that if you're building a site in Laravel and you want to add a new field to a record, you've got to do a database migration, add the field type, think about what you're going to do with the data. In EE, you can just add a field through the user interface, and that field becomes available straight away in templates, so it's a lot more flexible. And neither system's the right way of doing it. They're just different, and therefore usable in different sort of use cases. And that's the point, is that these systems can exist together. EE and Laravel can coexist and do different things. And so, being new to EE, I wanted to see what we could make it do, see if we could come up with a problem and see if we could fix it. So I'm introducing Dodgy Dave, who is from sunny Grimsford-on-Sea. And we built him a site, or we tried to build him a site in Expression Engine. And hopefully, Ollie, what do I do? How do I, hang on. Okay, so this is the site we've built for Dodgy Dave. He's got a unique collection of vehicles. And all we've really got here are 2 pages. So I've got the index page, and then you can flick through and get... Whoa, it is slow in here, isn't it? Wow. Oh, you wait till you see the template code. So while it's doing that, I'll show you the back end, what I made. Oh, so this, you know this better than I do, but you can see our channels and our entries for the vehicles. So Dave loves his site because he can easily add new vehicles anytime. Oh dear me. Presenter mode. Slideshow. Huh? Left. Slideshow. Ah. Oh. Oh dear. So yeah, he's got a problem. He wants to offer finance applications directly from the site. Okay, so he wants to offer finance on his site, and he's found a broker who conveniently for us have an API. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I'm bound to mess it up, but effectively there's some API endpoints that enable us to progress through to a full finance application. But the first API endpoint here just enables us to post to the API a value that somebody might want to borrow to pay for a car, and it will throw us back a monthly payment that we can then put on our site and hopefully entice someone to apply for a finance application. They've also got a Swagger bundle of API docs. So that should look familiar to anyone who's done much in the way of API stuff. And what else did they give us? They were very kind and gave us a JSON file for Postman, which has got all of the endpoints in it. So we can easily fire up Postman and try to hit this API and see what we can make it do. You just have to pretend it's working. It's trying to pull in all of my API tests from the internet. And for some reason, it's not working. It was working this morning at the hotel. Okay. So there's an API endpoint that we can hit. We give it the value of the car, and it passes back a monthly fee, which we can then include in our page. So if I look at the templates. Okay, so assuming that's working, okay, we can jump back a step and we can see in Postman now, we can see that if we specify some headers, we've got an API key in there, we're going to set a vehicle price of 45K, and when I call this, there we go. We do actually get something back, and we can format it nicely. So to borrow 45K to pay for the kit car, then it's going to be $1,300 a month for 36 months. Okay. So if we can replicate this API call within Expression Engine, we can get that data onto our page, and that's what I was trying to do. And here's my templates and sales. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to try and make it bigger. Now, I feel I really should point out that I'm using embeds. And about an hour or two ago, I learned that that might not be the best thing to do. But I do now understand a thing or two about layout templates. So I will be recoding this for Dave as soon as I get home and get to a proper internet connection. What I've done at the top is I've just got some really crude PHP code, which other people have told me is also not allowed. But it's a quick and dirty solution just to get something on the screen to show us. So I don't recommend you do this. I don't recommend you put your test API key, your API key in your source code. In fact, don't do any of this stuff. Yeah, if Dodgy Dave comes to you for a website, you can do much better than I did. But I can turn this on, and if I save this, and I go back to, let's say, the kit page, where at the moment we've got just the price, then now it's pulling in that data. And I could, in theory, kickstart an application process from here. So Dodgy Dave is very happy. And yeah. So EE template, calling the finance API directly, data retrieved from the API now on our page, simple to set up, and it works. However, we have a dependency now on a third-party API, and it's entirely possible that it's going to go really slowly in the future. And actually, we've included in the API I need a new laptop. All right. If I go back to here, we've got a header that allows us to simulate what happens if things at the Carmageddon broker start going wrong. So we've set their API to slow mode. And if I go back here and I choose the DeLorean, and this time it's not the internet connection. It's the fact that the API is just responding really slowly. I think it's scheduled to take between 8 and 10 seconds. Yeah, clearly not good enough. Dave is unhappy. So that was my original problem, and I thought, right, how are we going to fix this? And what I should do is learn how to do it properly in EE, but I decided to build a Laravel proxy that could sit in between the API and our code and do that bit for us so that we can simplify what we're doing in EE and also open up the possibility of doing a lot more in this Laravel middleware. So for instance, if we develop this fully, people would be applying for credit. Sometimes those applications might go through in a few seconds if they're auto-approved. Sometimes, though, they might be referred to an underwriter, might take a week to get back a decision. So not everyone's going to have the same experience, and delays are going to be involved. By using a Laravel middleware, we get all the benefits of Laravel, so things like queues and jobs. So we can do some more processing there. We can immediately feed back to the user and say, we've got your application, and then we can process that in our own time via manual intervention, or we can send emails when we receive updates via webhooks, those sort of things. And because we control the response to the browser, we can make sure that that's lightning fast. We can rely on it being fast. So we've implemented a Laravel middleware. And if I change the host name in my code, so instead of pointing to Carmageddon, it's now going to our Laravel middleware. Then if I click on the DeLorean, it should be back to being quick. Quickish. Quickish. So what I was trying to prove is that we can retain Expression Engine for doing the things that it's really good at, content management and control, and pass the API integrations into another layer. And that gives us various kind of benefits. Immediately, the UX becomes faster. We're in control of it, so we can rely on that. Fault tolerance and error handling. A good one there's future integrations. If we wanted to bring on board another funder or broker, we can integrate that without touching the EE front end at all. It's because it decouples EE from any third-party chaos that we might otherwise depend on. I was quite happy with myself when I got that working. And then everyone said to me, Laravel and EE, why don't you use Coilpack? So I looked into Coilpack, and it's a very interesting option in that it effectively gives you a bridge between the two systems, Expression Engine and Laravel. And you can use either system as much as you like. So if you're in Expression Engine mode, you can keep everything in Expression Engine and just use the bits of Laravel that you might want. So for instance, you might want Blade or Twig template processing. So you can do that. So you're using Expression Engine to do everything, but just the bits of Laravel. If you're a Laravel developer, conversely, you can just use the bits of Expression Engine that you need to. You can divide up your site so that because they share routing, if you set up routes on the Laravel side and the URL hits one of those routes, you can process it in Laravel in the normal way. If it doesn't, it gets passed through to the Expression Engine routing, and then Expression Engine picks it up. So effectively, you could have a Laravel web app, but some of the content, maybe the blog posts or the news items, are handled within Expression Engine. So it's a powerful approach to getting the best of both worlds, really. So we've got 3 approaches, and when would we use them? Well, my first naive approach, never, I think. Don't do it. I'm going to learn the right way of doing it in EE, whether that involves writing add-ons or plugins and so on. I know not to use stash or embeds ever. So I'm learning and I'm grateful, thank you. But it was useful for a quick demo. We got that working in, well, a few minutes. The Laravel proxy is a solid solution that you can use in enterprise-grade systems. It's scalable and robust. And you really can do anything you want with it because the sky's the limit. And Coilpack is definitely worth exploring if you want to build something as a hybrid of the 2 ecosystems. So in the real world, this kind of model architecture pattern pops up all over the place, especially in the enterprise where systems talking to each other is much more important than any one system. But anywhere where a third-party API is involved, or you can't rely on the speed of the system. So what have we learned from Dodgy Dave? That even simple sites can benefit from thinking architecturally, and the Expression Engine actually fits in alongside anything you want it to. I'm not sure about that last one, humor and tech equals engagement. I'll let you be the judge of that. But thank you very much for listening. In case it wasn't obvious, this was the first time I've ever talked in public. It's probably going to be the last. I'm happy to talk about all of these things, and I'm very grateful for you all having me. It's been wonderful to meet people in the community. I'm grateful to the organisers and sponsors, and thank you very much. Oh, no questions, Your Honour. Any questions? I knew you'd have a question. You've had a question for everyone.
Yeah. I don't understand the proxy thing. Like, we didn't see sort of where that Laravel code was going, and all you did was change the endpoint. So I guess I'm just, I mean, you said it's faster potentially, but aren't you sending all the same payload, the same API key, the same requests?
Yeah,
so what's the point of that being in the middle? And is that not just another thing to maintain? Like, I guess I just don't quite understand because I didn't see it. So
yeah, I should have gone into the code a bit more, but I'm not going to do that now. Effectively, it is working just as a proxy there. So yeah, you're right. The first time, you're just proxying through whatever would have happened from the API. So if they were going slow, you'd have a problem. However, effectively, you could use that as a cache. So, and you can preload caches. So in that particular instance, it was just saying, if I need to borrow 45K, these are the numbers that come. So there's no need to do that on every page load.
okay, so it's just caching just that initial calculation and response.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think one of the points with the kind of proxied Laravel was that you had the queuing system in there, which obviously means that you don't have to wait for it to happen because it's put in the queue. An interesting add-on that's been released for Expression Engine as a company, Bold-Minded, who've added a queue system.
They're called what, sorry?
Bold-Minded.
Okay, Bold-Minded.
They've created an add-on called Queue, which is absolutely fantastic if you want to start putting things in the queue.
I'm going to convert it all to template layouts, and then
sorry, but fantastic.
Then I will look at Bold-Minded. Yeah, Bold-Minded.
It's called Queue.
Okay.
No, it's fantastic and well illustrated points there. So
thank you.
You did fantastic.
Very kind.
Thank you.
The queue is actually Laravel queue.
Okay. It's a good queue system. Would you like your telephone back? Thank you. Can I go now?